That was just some of the debate on Capitol Hill yesterday as Republicans were unable to elect a Speaker of the House on 3 separate votes. Now, a total of 20 Republicans opting to not support Kevin McCarthy to become the next Speaker. Florida Congressman Byron Donalds withdrawing his support from McCarthy on the final vote of the day. Joining me now is Washington Examiner Editor-in-Chief Hugo Gurdon. Hugo, it's great to see you this morning. Thank you for being here with us. Your 1,000-foot view of where we are right now as we go into day 2, waiting for a Speaker to be elected. You know, Jim Jordan seems to be the other favorite, but he doesn't even want to do it.
Right. This was a terrible self-inflicted wound, Jackie. You know, if the Republicans show that they can't govern themselves, voters are not going to believe that they can govern the country. And this was an absolute mess yesterday. The rebels got a lot of concessions before the vote was even taking place. They could have taken the win and walked away and shown the party to be unified, which is what's necessary for the Republicans to do for the next 2 years. And then right near the end of the day, McCarthy apparently made more concessions, and they made concessions which they had been demanding, and then they upped their demands. It looks as though there may be even sort of bad faith rebellion here, and that there may be an absolutely hard block of guys, of lawmakers who are not going to vote for McCarthy.
The problem
so I think
here,
McCarthy's candidacy is in trouble.
Yeah, the problem here, though, is that all of this fighting and the fight for the speakership is delaying all the work they have to do for the American people, right? Potential GOP investigations, swearing in the new members would come first, but then the investigations and possibly trying to legislate, right? The reason people voted in the midterms and the House turned is because people wanted to see some change. And yet you see them, if you were watching yesterday, it was fascinating to watch, you know, sort of posturing back and forth.
Right. They're absolutely right. They cannot get on with the work that they were elected to do. One of the things that the messages of the midterm was that the voters want sensible, responsible government. And that's the Republicans have this task over the next 2 years to show that they are a responsible, reasonable alternative government to the Democrats. And they've started off on exactly the wrong foot. There are investigations to do. And this is one of the things that the Republicans have put themselves in danger about. They have to show, but in showing themselves responsible, they have to pick their fights. They have to investigate the collapse of the southern border. They have to investigate, you know, the debacle in Afghanistan, and the wasted money and the causes of COVID. They have to avoid things that make them look like partisan squabblers. They have to avoid investigation, for example, of Hunter Biden, who's already being investigated by the DOJ. Right. So they have to pick their battles and really show that they're responsible. And yet they start off in this way, where, as I say, they can't govern themselves. So why would voters believe they can govern the country? Yeah,
that's a good point. Sticking to the core issues that people care about without making it look petty. Meantime, speaking of those GOP investigations, Karine Jean-Pierre, White House press secretary, this is what she had to say about it. Watch this.
House Republicans promised that fighting inflation during the midterms was going to be their #1 priority. But instead, what they're doing is wanting to do an investigation on the president and his family. That is their focus. They don't want to focus on the American people and their family. They want to focus on political division.
And that's your exact point.
Yeah, well, she makes the point that you know, you can see here the White House and the Democrats are going to attack the Republicans whenever they see the possibility. It's of all of the absurd things that the Democrats do, perhaps the most absurd is to try and blame the Republicans for inflation. But if the Republicans give the Democrats and the White House a handle on this, if they go into a kind of what can seem like a vendetta investigation of, say, Hunter Biden or the 2020 election, or trying just to defend President Trump, then they will be handing a weapon to the Democrats. Inflation is, of course, the Democrats' fault. It's spending trillions and trillions of dollars. And one of the things to remember, Jackie, is, you know, inflation is now still above 7%. It was above 7% before the Ukraine war. So the excuses that the Biden administration has made in the past, that these are Putin's price hikes, is absolute nonsense.
Yeah. Good point.
Hugo, hi, James Freeman at the Wall Street Journal. Wondering, we just played a soundbite with Matt Gaetz saying there's no difference between Nancy Pelosi and Kevin McCarthy. I don't know if he really believes that, but that's a position that would suggest not a lot of room for compromise, not a lot of desire to compromise and allow McCarthy to be Speaker. Do you think Gaetz represents just himself, half of those 20 holdouts, all of them? I'm trying to get a sense of who you think might be persuadable, how many in that group of 20 might be willing to come around.
Yeah, James, I'm concerned that, in fact, the McCarthy and his allies may not be able to reduce the number of holdouts to a sufficient level that he can actually win this. I expect that he will get some. He's already made some concessions, and he'll probably win over a few more, even though the number inched up to 20 rebels by the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that he can do it. I'm not sure that he can get there. And I would say I don't think Jim Jordan is the likely replacement, but there's been talk of Steve Scalise for a long time. And the pressure will build on McCarthy. If he can't win, the pressure will build on him to step down and allow someone like Scalise to stand.
Hugo Gurdon, it's great to see you this morning. Thank you so much for your insight.